The hardship and loneliness of parenting an autistic child. Parenting a child on the autism spectrum is an experience that transforms every layer of life. It is both sacred and exhausting, full of moments that pierce the heart with love and others that shatter it with isolation. Many parents enter the journey believing love will be enough, and it is love that carries them, but it does not erase the weight of the unknown, the fatigue of constant vigilance, or the ache of being unseen in a world that does not understand. The invisible labor of understanding. Every parent learns their child's language, but when your child's world runs on a rhythm that few can hear, learning that language becomes a full-time act of devotion. You watch every movement, every sound, every flicker of expression. You begin to decode the difference between a cry of frustration and a cry of sensory overload, between silence that means peace and silence that means pain. You become an interpreter between two worlds. This work is invisible. The world sees a meltdown and calls it bad behavior. The parent sees it as communication, as an overwhelmed nervous system saying, "I can't." The parent steps in, calm and alert, while their heart breaks quietly in the background. They are not only caring for a child, but carrying the weight of misunderstanding that follows them everywhere. Loneliness in the middle of love. There are few kinds of loneliness that compare to parenting an autistic child in a society that prizes conformity. It is the loneliness of sitting in a crowded waiting room hearing other parents discuss milestones your child has never reached. It is the loneliness of birthday parties where your child stands apart or is not invited at all. It is the loneliness of hearing well-meaning people say, "He doesn't look autistic," as if that were comfort. It is also the loneliness that can exist within your own family or marriage when one parent understands and the other does not, when exhaustion grows into resentment, and when no one has the energy to reach across the space between them. Even within love, isolation can bloom. You grieve the ease that other parents take for granted. You grieve the simplicity of a world where every step doesn't have to be explained, defended, or fought for. The fight for normalcy. There is a silent battle that happens behind closed doors. It is the battle to keep a routine that prevents chaos. The battle to survive a public outing without judgment. The battle to convince teachers, doctors, and relatives that your child is not broken, only different. The parent becomes a warrior, but also a diplomat. They learn to navigate systems, to fill out endless forms, to explain behaviors in calm tones even when their heart is screaming. They learn the language of special education law and therapy acronyms. They learn how to carry the constant hum of anxiety beneath a mask of competence. And yet, in all this striving, the dream of normal begins to fade. The parent starts to see that normal was never the goal. The goal is peace. The goal is safety. The goal is for the child to feel loved in a world that too often makes them feel wrong simply for existing. The grief that has no funeral. There is grief in this journey, but it is not the kind people know how to comfort. It is a quiet grief that shows up in moments no one else notices. It comes when a child your child's age says, "I love you" to their parent, and you realize you have never heard those words. It comes when you imagine adulthood and wonder who will understand your child when you are gone. It comes in the middle of the night when you lie awake listening for sounds of distress, your body too tired to rest but too alert to let go. This grief is private. It does not have a name or a place to gather. There are no sympathy cards or casseroles for the parent who cries in silence over the gap between what is and what might have been. And yet, that grief coexists with love. You can hold both. You can mourn and celebrate the same child in the same breath. When support feels out of reach, people say, "You're so strong," as if strength were a gift rather than a necessity. They do not see that what looks like strength is often survival. Parents of autistic children rarely have time to fall apart. There are therapies to attend, routines to maintain, and behaviors to anticipate before they escalate. Friends drift away, invitations stop coming. Life becomes structured around what the child can handle, not what the parent needs. Support exists, but it is fragmented. Some families find it in online groups or local networks, others never do. Many parents stop asking for help because they are tired of being misunderstood. They learn to depend on themselves, and that independence, while admirable, can become a prison. Moments of grace. And yet, within the struggle, there are moments that no one else could ever understand in their full beauty. The first time your child looks into your eyes and smiles with recognition. The first spontaneous hug. The first time they use words to express what used to come out as tears. These moments are holy. They are the small resurrections that keep a parent going. Autism does not erase love. It changes its language. It teaches patience that runs deeper than exhaustion, empathy that grows from pain, and joy that appears not in grand events but in fleeting seconds of connection. Parents of autistic children become experts at noticing what others miss. They see beauty in patterns, meaning in repetition, peace in stillness. The world that doesn't see the hardest part of parenting an autistic child is not the child. It is the world. It is the constant need to explain, defend, and educate. It is the sideways glances in public, the unsolicited advice, the lack of inclusion in spaces that claim to value diversity. Parents grow weary of systems that say support but mean control. They grow tired of professionals who speak of their child in terms of deficits. They long for a world that understands that difference is not disorder, that communication is not always verbal, and that every child, no matter how they express themselves, belongs. A quiet kind of heroism. The parent of an autistic child is a quiet kind of hero, not the kind celebrated in movies or on talk shows, but the kind who gets up every morning and faces another day of uncertainty with love. The kind who learns to find peace in progress that comes slowly and hope in steps that others might not notice. This kind of parenthood teaches humility. It dismantles illusions about control and replaces them with surrender. It shows how deep love can go when it is stripped of all reward or recognition. It is a lonely path at times, but it is also sacred. For in learning to love a child who experiences the world differently, a parent learns to see life differently too. They discover that joy can exist without words, that meaning can be found in repetition, and that love, when tested by hardship, becomes something unbreakable. In the end, parenting an autistic child is not a tragedy. The tragedy is the lack of understanding that surrounds it. What breaks parents is not their child's uniqueness, but the world's refusal to make room for it. Behind every autistic child is a parent who has learned to live in the space between exhaustion and grace, who has learned to fight with gentleness, to grieve without surrender, and to love beyond language. And though the loneliness is real, so is the strength that grows in its shadow. So is the beauty that emerges when a parent realizes that their child is not lost in another world, but simply living in a world that moves at a different rhythm. A rhythm that, once heard, can change the heart forever.